And then, let me just roll my sleeves up. Before we start, I would just like to point out that my earrings today are a coffee bean and a coffee mug, and that makes me very happy. Welcome back to the Bliss Bean. Today I'm going to take you on a tour through my calendar, which is an extension of my brain, because if something is not on my calendar, it's probably not going to happen in real life. I'm going to show you how I take my calendar from this to this. This is something that I do when I'm doing my weekly planning. It is but one step of that process. So if you want to see the whole weekly planning routine, I do have a video on that. But we are going to dive into the calendar. So the first calendar that I have is kind of the one that my life revolves around these days, and that is my class schedule. So what I did for this was I went to Blackboard, which is like the online platform that we use, and I copied the link to the calendar, and then I went to iCal and I said new calendar subscription. You paste the link into there, and then it will always, like, see those little wavy things there? That means that you're subscribed to a calendar that belongs to someone else. So any changes that happen on Blackboard are automatically going to sync to my iCal as well. So I definitely recommend doing this as opposed to like manually entering in your classes, because then even if your class schedule week to week is very consistent, which mine is not, something might change and you might not notice it. You won't update it on your calendar, and then you're gonna miss your class. So this always stays updated. It also includes the room number that I need to go to. The only thing that I don't like about it is that sometimes they will create these really long events like this. This was an enrollment period for, what was this? For the labs, an enrollment period for the labs that lasted literally 2 weeks. It just kind of clutters up the calendar, and when you're subscribed to a calendar, you can't delete or hide any individual event. So that's my only complaint. Usually it isn't a problem, because before then, okay, we did have this before, but usually I would just have this really nice, clean class schedule. The next important calendar I have is my personal events. So I thrive on consistency. That's why you see me eating breakfast at the same time each day. I like to have breakfast from 8 to 8:30, dinner from 8 till about 9, and then lunch is a different story. We'll get to that later. So I have these set as repeating events so that it automatically populates in my calendar, and it's just one less extra step to do. The personal calendar also includes any other personal commitments that I have. So this week, for example, that is my counseling appointment. I had my first counseling appointment today. I'm visiting this castle with friends this afternoon. A meeting for school, student government meeting. I'm going to Madrid, so I've got my bus ride. I've got calls planned with friends. Next, I have my work calendar, which usually doesn't involve a lot. Me and Maya's my assistant, we do have a weekly meeting. I had 2 miscellaneous meetings at the beginning of the week, and then another thing I like to do is sort of use my calendar to remind me of things that I should be doing. So you'll see these events here. These tasks don't have to happen at that exact time and date. The important thing is that it just appears on my calendar as a reminder that I should do it around then, and then I can move it. Maybe I'll do the weekly content refresh Friday before I leave, and the monthly one, we can push that to Monday. And let me actually undo that, because I don't know about that. When it comes to work, one thing that has been saving me a lot of time is that 6 months ago, I started to work with a virtual assistant. So some of you might have heard me talk about her. I just mentioned her in this video. Her name is Maya. She's fantastic. So the sponsor of today's video is Magic. Magic is a place where you can find a dedicated virtual assistant for personal use, for business projects that you might have at an hourly rate, or you can also hire a monthly assistant for your business. I was pretty reluctant to start working with an assistant in the beginning, and so I totally understand if you are, just because like the Bliss Bean is my baby. But let me tell you, once I got over that and actually started working with a virtual assistant, it was a game changer. I knew that I would not have time once college started to do all of the things that I used to do for the Bliss Bean, and I knew that it just could not grow as much as I wanted it to unless I got some help with it. So these days, Maya helps me with like organizing emails, editing and uploading podcasts, uploading videos, brainstorming ideas for videos, so many things. And one thing I want to emphasize is that there's no like rule book for how to work with a virtual assistant. A lot of YouTubers, for example, the first thing that they outsource is video editing. But for me, I love editing videos, and I feel like my editing style is a very important part of my channel. And so I did things a different way. I outsourced different things, and I've been so happy with what the results have been. I did not meet Maya through magic. I got lucky to meet her in a different way, but whatever project that you're looking for a virtual assistant for, I definitely recommend going to Magic, the link is in the description, and see what magic might happen if you find a virtual assistant to help you take that project to the next level. Alright, so those three, the classes, the personal, and the work calendar, those are like the pillars of my calendar. Then I have a few other less important calendars. So one of them is Songkick. And there's no concerts happening this week. Songkick is a website where you can sign in through your Spotify account, and then it'll automatically track upcoming concerts for all of the artists that you listen to that are in specific areas that you select. So I track concerts that are happening around Madison, Chicago, and then Madrid. I have this exercise calendar, and there's nothing on here, so let me just scroll back a few months. Back when I was at home, I had a gym membership, and I loved going to group exercise classes. This was a really nice way to keep track of those recurring events and just see how they fit in within my schedule so that I could decide which classes I wanted to go to. The birthdays calendar is very nice and simple. So all I do is I put in the person's name, I set it to an all-day event, and then I have it repeat yearly. BASB is a course that I'm taking right now. It's called Building a Second Brain. It's actually, I think it's glitching a little bit. So this is just the reality of digital calendars. Sometimes they do go a little bit wonky and you don't know why. So technical difficulties, but maybe I'll get it working. Basically, the way that I use this is I would normally hide the calendar because I don't want to attend every single one of these mentor sessions. I think some of them in my time zone were like, in the middle of the night. And so instead what I would do is normally I would hide it, but then when I was doing my Sunday weekly planning, I would open it up and see, okay, which mentor sessions do I want to attend this week? And then I would basically duplicate them to my personal calendar. So for example, what is this? Frank's mentor session, and then hide the original, just like that. Finally, we get to the daily schedule calendar. I just need a dramatic pause here. So this is what makes my calendar such an invaluable tool for me. All of these other calendars basically show events that I need to go to, things that happen at a specific time. The daily schedule calendar is how I plan out how I'm going to spend the spaces in between, all of the free time that I have. So for example, this event, homework, I don't have to do homework at 9 a.m. Like I don't have to go somewhere to meet up with someone to do homework. No one's gonna know if I don't actually do homework at 9 a.m. But that's just how I like to plan out my own schedule. I like to have a general idea that, okay, today from 9 to 10 a.m. I'm gonna do some homework. So basically what happens in my weekly planning process is at this point, I will have in my notebook a brain dump list of everything I can think of that I need to do in the upcoming week. So one analogy that you might have heard of that I'm a big fan of is the big rocks first analogy. So basically what this says is, let's say that you have a glass jar. This represents all of the time that you have in your life, in your calendar, in your schedule. And then you have an assortment of sand, little pebbles, bigger pebbles, rocks. These represent all the things that you have to do, all of your tasks. So sand represents little tiny things that don't take very long, they're not super important. Rocks are things that take hours, they take chunks of focused work time, they have big results. If you put the sand in first, and then you put the pebbles, and then the bigger pebbles, your jar is gonna be almost full, but you still have not put in the big rocks. The big rocks are just not gonna fit at the top, it's gonna overflow. The other way, the opposite way to approach this is to first take your big rocks, put them in the jar, then take your big pebbles, put them in the jar, and they're gonna fall in between the spaces, between the big rocks, then the small pebbles, and then the sand. So if you do the sand as the last step, it's gonna fall down into the cracks between all of the other rocks and pebbles that you have. This is basically what happens when you're scheduling your week. If you start with the little minutia and the annoying little errand thingies, you're not gonna have time for the things that are really important to you. If you do it the other way around and you first say, okay, I am dedicating these mornings to these big rocks that I have, and then all of the other things, they'll find a way into my schedule somehow. You know, if a task takes 5 minutes, you you can find that 5 minutes somewhere. Maybe you're waiting in line or you're on the train or something. So this is sort of what I'm thinking about when I first start blocking out my week. Some of the first things that I put into my schedule when I was planning this week were filming this video right there, editing this video because I have a fast turnaround time, so I need to prioritize that. The building a second brain course, that was also a big rock. And then also editing the weekly vlog that I filmed last week. So yeah, usually it's like big homework assignments, filming videos, and editing videos. Those are the big rocks in my calendar. So breakfast and dinner always happen at the same time. Lunch, though, is served from 12:45 to 3:30. So that just depends on what I have going on that day. So I'll go through and, for example, today I knew that I had my counseling appointment that ended at 12:30. So I was like, I'll go down right after that. Thursday, that's pretty clear. I have exactly a 40-minute block between those two classes, perfect for lunch. And similar for Friday, in between the meeting and my class. Actually, I think this week I'm gonna skip that class so I can enjoy a longer lunch. Don't tell anyone. Another thing I do, and I'm gonna talk about this in next week's video, which is my productive college study routine video, is schedule blocks of time for homework, even if I don't have specific assignments to work on. So, for example, at the start of the week, I might have 2 assignments that I know about. So of course I'm gonna schedule time to work on those. However, I would be stupid to think that I'm not gonna have any other homework. So what I like to do is just find a blank space. Let's imagine this is a blank space and just put a homework block. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna spend this time, but by then, I'll probably have some readings or a group project or something to work on. And even if I don't, well, that's great. Then I just have more time to do other stuff, to relax, to move things around. The important thing is to anticipate stuff. So I'm always anticipating that I'm gonna have homework, and I'm always setting aside time for that. One thing to point out is that not everything in the brain dump is gonna make it onto the calendar. And I think a good example of that is if I write down, for example, a bunch of people that I need to email, I'm not going to schedule a block of time to email each person unless it's something very intense. What I would do is I would schedule, let's say, an hour block. Monday morning, title that email, and then in my to-do list, I would write down the specific emails that I need to work on. I think that in most cases, if you make your time blocking too microscopic, it just becomes very difficult to deal with. There's less flexibility, it's harder to change things around. I prefer bigger blocks that are kind of themed. So emails, errands, homework. Overall, it's not a step-by-step clear-cut process. It's just like it's a holistic process. It's sort of like putting together a puzzle. You're kind of figuring things out as you go, shuffling things around, and then as the week flows, I think it's really important to be flexible and also leave yourself lots of buffer time, blank spaces. I always try to emphasize that not all of the techniques I talk about on my channel are gonna necessarily work for you. So like, I know that a lot of people find time blocking to be stressful because you just feel like you're always working with some kind of a deadline. If you fall behind on your schedule, then everything gets shifted behind as well. For me though, the opposite would be stressful. You know, if I didn't have a time block calendar and I just had this nebulous list of things in my head that I need to get done, but I don't really know when I'm gonna do them, that would constantly be weighing on me and that would be stressing me out. So you really just have to find what works for you. I'm sorry, that's like really generic advice, but it's the only thing I think that anyone can say for certain is find what works for you. But one more thing is I want to tell you about how I access my calendar. So I have a widget on the iPhone. This widget takes up like 2/3 of the home screen, but it is so worth it because it shows you, I think, pretty much your entire calendar for the day. I absolutely love it because I don't have to do any clicking to find what my next class and room number is, what task I'm supposed to be working on at the moment. And then, let me just roll my sleeves up, is the Apple Watch widget that I really like. So I recently did an Apple Watch video showing you how I use it for college, but just real quick, on my main watch face, I have this Siri complication. It shows you cards of information that are going to be most relevant to you at any given time. And that is it. That is my entire calendar. So I hope you found this video helpful. I'm going to quickly plug my Instagram. Great place to go for updates on my life and my free weekly newsletter. Some great advice in there as well if you're interested in either of those. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will talk to you next week. Bye!